Zach. Oh, sorry, Zach. I thought I was seeing Ghost there, like other person was during this game. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. I am your co-host Ashton here with my awesome co-host Zach, and we are wild card round winners. We move on to the next stage, and man, guys, what a while! This season has been a roller coaster, definitely a roller coaster. How are you feeling, Zach? After
Yeah, I'm
that,
feeling great. Hey, it's wild card win. Like I'm pumped. I'm excited. It got me. It's the game that I felt like this could have been. Because as much as the Vikings, they're a 14-3 team. They had some hot streaks. They had some issues. I mean, they didn't go up against the cream of the crop this season, and so I thought the
yeah,
Rams were going to have a good performance, and that defense just showed up. It was lights out.
yeah,
Lights out.
that D line. We've said this all year, and I know some other fan bases probably saw that statement and was like, that there's no way, when we said this D line is a top 5 D line in the NFL of all 1 year and second year players. And I would tell that to everyone. And I would just always get like, come on, you guys just lost Aaron Donald. There's no way that happened. It happened. And the entire NFL saw it happen to the Vikings. Now, we'll talk about the Eagles game in the second half of the pod, but there's a lot of doubters out there, Zach. A lot of people saying, the Rams are going to get blown out just like they did last weekend. So we'll see about that. But kind of pivoting back to this game, just going over some new stuff. It does seem like we'll both have Akello and Higbee back after this game. Higbee was coughing up blood, as everyone has heard about. So hopefully he feels a tad bit better for this game, Zach. The offense did lose a slight notch when he got out after, I believe it was a little bit after the first quarter. But he had done a lot of damage by then. He was still the leading receiver by the end of the game, which is a little nuts. But Happy's back. Happy Kello is feeling a lot better too. That was a little worrying when he went out. He's been our best corner by far. Uh, just yeah, Zach. Any reaction to the news having both Higby and Kello
Yeah,
back?
yeah, no, I think that's great. Obviously, Higby, he started off strong, and really, man, that game turned into a tight end heavy game. Even when
Oh yeah,
Higby went out, you started to see Davis Allen got a catch, Hunter Long got a catch, Parkinson got 2 catches. So the tight end game was going to be their plan of attack this whole game, and we saw that throughout. Um,
yeah,
but like you said, Higby did great. I feel like if the Rams weren't up the way they were, I think Witherspoon probably would have tried to play through the hamstring injury, but since it was such a commanding lead, there was no real reason to attempt to make it worse. Um,
yeah.
so, uh, but I'm super happy to have those two guys back for sure.
Yeah, it just Akello, he gave up a few plays, but for the most part, he was great. He was the primary watching Justin Jefferson. Of course, they were doubling him up with the safety having inside leverage. I think it was Dan Orlovsky had a really good video kind of about how they were bracketing Justin Jefferson the entire game and doing something different from what the Lions did. The Lions had a lot more pure man blitzes, and we were doing a mix of uh, man press blitzes with our more typical man match zone. So we were doing a lot of different stuff than we normally put on tape, and it was clearly confusing their boy Darnold. Now, Zach, the only other news is it is projected to snow uh, in the Eagles game. So I
Yeah,
don't
light
know if they have a
light
snow
snow.
total.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be
Dustin.
light snow, dusting during the day. It's supposed to get heavier, I think, towards that night. I mean, it's going to be above freezing as well. So, kind of in that 33 to 38-degree range. So, Matthew Stafford is comfortable. I mean, he knows this. He's played in Lambeau. He's played in Chicago for many years. Like, very familiar with cold weather territory. So I'm not really too concerned about that. And even when weather does get bad, it becomes a defensive game. So I'm not really concerned about our defense because I think our
Yeah.
defense, whether rain, snow, sleet, anything you can throw at them, I think the defense is going to play at a high level. I will say that our offense, I think, um, does need to step it up. Yes, we had 27 points. 7 of those points was due to um, the defense, and I want to talk about that separately from this.
Hmm.
And I kind of want to talk about the offense first because I kind of want to get that out of the way. Our offense played better than they have in the last several weeks, 100%. They've had more points in the first quarter than I think they've had in the first quarter all season. But then they started to stagger out a little bit. They lost momentum in the second quarter, and we are just so lucky that Matthew Stafford did a forward pass and Puka Nakua was in that area, um, or that fumble recovery, that non-existent fumble recovery, really could have put us in a bind and really could have shifted this entire narrative and this entire gameplay. Um, if the Vikings were able to kind of capitalize on that early in the thing. Um, but to me, our offense played really well in the first quarter, started to slow down after that. And maybe it's because Higbee went out, things like that, but they could not get the run game really going. I mean, the Vikings held Kyron Williams to under 80 yards, still had an impressive game, had the amazing touchdown on their first drive. Um, but the offense was still not what I was hoping for. Even from the first Vikings appearance to first Viking game and then the Bills game, like we still haven't seen that offense come back since those games.
Yeah. So my take on the offense is I actually think it's their second best offensive game of the year behind the Bills. The first half, especially where they were going full all out, it just felt like they were pushing the ball at will, doing what they want. And clearly Minnesota was selling out to stop Kyron. And our tight ends were just wide open because they were basically blitzing from the flat position a lot. And so the flats were wide open, checkdowns galore, and Stafford was just nailing them and doing a great job at it. I do kind of wish we would have rotated Whittington in more over some of the other tight ends, but don't get me wrong, the tight ends had their best game of the entire season in this game as
Yeah,
a group.
as a
I
collective.
thought they
Yep.
all were explosive, getting separation. Now, a lot of that was kind of probably because of the scheme of the way McVay was getting them open versus how the Vikings were playing the defense. And they were making plays, though, especially Higbee. When he was getting open, he was breaking tackles, mowing through people. I thought Long had a few really good plays. Their blocking was solid too, but for most of the game, they were kind of going out and doing their thing. Even some deep shots down to them also,
Yeah,
which they should have called that PI. But
yeah, I'm not saying the offense didn't do a terrible job. It still wasn't what I think the Rams can be. I mean, Puka didn't get above 50 yards. Cooper Cup had one reception the entire game. Was only targeted once. Like you said, our leading receiver was Tyler Higbee, who
mhm.
left in the second, who left sometime in the second quarter. 5 receptions for 58 yards. Um, it's just one of those things where like our tight ends stepped up. Yes, 100%. I agree with you. They had their best game yet. But Demarcus Robinson, one reception. Cooper Cup, one reception. Kyron Williams, he had 3, and then we had 4 tight ends catch the ball a few times. Like,
So So in defense of
someone needs to break out. Kyron Williams didn't have a breakout game. He had 76 yards. He did have a receiving touchdown. That is great. Doesn't have anything to but the momentum, they couldn't get the running game really going. And then in the passing game, they got big chunk plays, which is good too. But we're still just, like no one on the receiving end had a breakout game other than Higbee, I would say.
I would say that's mainly because they didn't really need to. Like they were getting the chunk plays as a team, and you really didn't need anyone to really have like a dominant game. Puka didn't need to have a dominant game because by the time where he normally takes over, I feel like Puka is definitely better in the second half of games, especially this year. He builds up, wears down a team, and then eventually starts gashing them more and more as the secondary gets a little bit worn down. By the time we got to the mid third, I feel like a lot of issues with the Rams offense wasn't necessarily that plays weren't being explosive. It was as soon as they were starting to get rolling, like the first half, and like you feel like they're going to score, they would have a penalty. And this happened every drive. They would have a very big penalty. And I would say like 6 or 7 drives in a row, you had penalty after penalty, like push them back. And we've said this all year, Zach. They are not a team that once they go 2nd and 20, they rarely convert those over the amount of downs. They are just not that type of team. And when they get behind the sticks, it's not good. And I would say 6 of those 9 are definitely 5 of those 9 weren't real penalties. They were little nuts.
Yeah, we'll talk about the penalties in a minute because I think that's a separate conversation. Yeah. The penalties were not, but to go out there and 5 drives, they had to punt the ball.
Yeah.
3 of those, I believe, were 3 and outs. One of them was a 5 and out. And I know one of those is this kind of the stupid back-to-back penalties that were like the tickety-tack, and I think only one of those was actually an actual holding call. Completely agree.
That's the very last one. The last holding was a legitimate holding, yeah.
But I don't know. I'm still, the offense is still frustrating me a little bit. They have games where someone breaks out and they just didn't. And I think if the Vikings would have had any chance on offense, this game would have, really could have flipped the other direction if the Rams couldn't keep their offense on the field.
So I do feel like at a certain point when we get so up, McVay has a different play calling style, and he's and we've said this many times, he's a very, very passive coach. He's not ultra aggressive. He's going to do the most conservative thing possible. And I feel like, especially in the late third and all of the fourth, he was just killing clock, doing play calls just to hold on to the ball. And
here's the thing, you can't say that though. That's the problem, is he didn't have the ball. Like, if you're going to kill the clock, you got to kill the clock. You can't go 3 and out or 5 and out and then say you're managing the clock. You're taking up maybe, a minute and a half. And so that's my problem, is like, that's fine. I don't care if they don't score a touchdown, but when you go out on the field and you're 3 and out and you have to go punt the ball away, now, in the last 4 minutes, when you're still up 16 or 18, that's fine. Again, I don't care about that. But when you're still in the third quarter and the fourth quarter and you're getting 3 and 4 and outs, 3 or 5 and out, like, that is still a problem on the offense. You got to be able to get at least, knock more time off the clock than just, a minute and a half.
Well, that's where the catch-22 is, because they're trying to kill clock, but also they get in second down, they have a 3 or 4 yard run, and then they go on second down, have another run, and then they get a holding. And then they go back to like 2nd and 15, 2nd and 16. And McVay's not going to try to throw the ball deep down the field. You don't want to risk an interception, a touchdown interception return. You want to try to put the defense in a more favorable position. At that point, he gives up on the drive and like, we're not probably going to convert this. If we do, nice, but we're going to run and just take our percentages until it becomes a 1-score game again or a 2-score game. I guarantee you his play calling would have changed if it was probably 2 scores or down. When we went up 3 scores, he was like, I'm just going to kill clock and do my best to do that. And if they make it a game, then I'll change my tactics. That's my personal opinion. And they had a lot of good drives, still like getting a first down and then getting pushed back. Like they had a few of those. And I really don't necessarily think that it was a lot of the offense's fault. I mean, half of the holding calls were just people doing good blocks. And that's a little ridiculous.
Yeah, but we've seen this before though, where the Rams either start hot or end hot, and they never can stay consistently hot. And and that's for better or for worse. In this game, it was beneficial. The Rams defense stood up. They held another team to under 10 points, which is again what the fourth or fifth time they've done that this season. Prishula is just, and we could shift into the defense because I think I'm frustration with the offense. I'm still a little frustrated. Cooper Kupp's not getting targeted. Puka had a minimal receiving game, stuff like that. But really, our success of the night was our defense. They completely dominated. I'm just so proud of this team, and they've been consistent. And they have really been the reason why we keep winning all of these games, whether it's a defensive slugfest, whether it's, any of these other games. Like our defense for probably all but 3 of the games really have kept us into this game, or into any game this whole entire
season. Mm-hmm. Hello, Can. At any time while you guys are watching, feel free to join the conversation, put comments down below, give us your opinion on defense, different defensive players, same thing with offense, what you guys think were the positives and the negatives of the offense after the Vikings game. Just to piggyback off of what you were saying, Zach, the D line, it has grown so much, and we saw the explosiveness for most of the first half of the season. It was just like they were missing technique. They were just getting so close. And in the last 5 to 6 weeks when we were playing our starters, they have been getting home. And this was like the culmination of all of that hard work from this defensive front. And everyone was getting the town, and everyone was a part of that kind of effort to get to Sam Darnold.
You know who didn't participate, or who did not get to Sam Darnold?
I mean, Verse, but he got a touchdown, which is better.
Technically, Jared Verse did not get in on the sacks, which, he kind of feels left out. 9 sacks, tied for the most sacks in a playoff game. Is just crazy. But really got to love the effort that Jared Verse did. I mean, you got the Ahkello Witherspoon punched the ball out. It was just great that, Verse was there, and then he just booked it. I think they were clocking him at like 19, just over 19 miles an hour, trying to, get to the end zone. So congratulations on him. I really do think that has to solidify him as rookie defensive player of the year. He's just playing at such an elite level. But yeah, you just go through this and you just are like, man, how good of a defense that we have with what we're paying. I mean, we're one of the cheapest defenses in the league. Like you said, really truly believe that we are a top 5 defense. You got Gillimore, who got a sack and a half. Byron Young got a sack and a half. Hoyt got a half sack. Fisk got in on a half sack. Kobe Turner had 2 sacks. And then we got even Kobe Durant came in for a sack.
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Johnson had a sack. Ahkello had a sack. Like, you go through all of these, and, we had 2 cornerbacks. And I think that was the first time in playoffs that 2 cornerbacks got a sack in a game.
Yeah, Ken, I agree with you. I think some of that has been in the second half season. He's gotten a lot more attention as the primary pass rusher and the primary explosive pass rusher on the Rams, so he's getting a lot more chips in the second half of the season.
And let's say
He's getting a lot.
in the first half, he felt like he was going too fast, and he kept sliding and missing. And I think he slowed things down a little bit. And so I think he's going to find that happy medium point, like you said, especially in the upcoming seasons.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you got to be able to use your explosiveness at a certain time and then like bust through line and make those plays. It was a little bit easier for Aaron Donald. I felt like just because of his leverage, his size, and then you mix that with the fact he's coming from the inside. So like if you make a play through, you can get to the running back if you're quick enough, even if the quarterback isn't passing. And teams started getting around that by going behind Aaron Donald and stuff like that, as everyone knows. But I definitely can see Verse getting up to 16 sacks. He has been the best pass rusher on the edge we've had.
I mean, here's the thing, like
definitely since I've been watching the Rams. So
yeah, and you know, he is probably the best pass rusher, but you got to give Byron Young some good credit there too. Like them having on each side, it's just been just night and day difference in our pass rushing in recent history. So
Young reminds me a lot of Leonard Floyd. Like he's very much like a really balanced edge. Like he's good at the run. He's good at pass rushing, but he's not explosive at pass rushing. He has movement.
I mean, he's a big dude. I mean, this dude, he's giant. Where again, you know, Verse is a little, he's more, his longer leg, longer armed, like quicker, things like that. And so you're going to come with more, be more dynamic when you have those capabilities that Verse has. But man, did the Rams hit super hard in the draft? I mean, being able to get Verse, being able to get Fisk, and then Kobe Turner. He's young on this team. You know, you got Young, who's young on this team. Like these Rams, you know, defensive linemen are, you know, few seasons into the league. They're all young and they're putting in so much work, and it just tells you the culture that Sean McVay has, what Krishula has. Again, like we've seen these spurts. We've seen Byron Young. We've seen Kobe Turner last year with a different different defensive coordinator, and they're just getting better and better. And again, credit obviously always goes to Krishula and how he's scheming them. But the culture that I think Sean McVay just brings to this organization is just something else. And I don't think that you can create those same cultures. We've seen other teams try to do it. You look at the Vikings and love Kevin O'Connell and what he's doing over there, but like he tried to get a Matthew, like he tried to have, you know, Darnold like Stafford. It just did not work out. So I don't know. Credit goes obviously to the players, but also goes to Krishula, and then overall Sean McVay just bringing in a culture that allows his defensive coordinator to do his thing, but let the players be part of the process. And I don't see that in other organizations.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put this take out here. I think Jared Verse is already better than Robert Quinn. I think that's pretty clear. His Verse's only a big like drawback right now is he doesn't exactly finish the sacks, especially early on in the season. And now like he's starting to do that more and more. So I think he's already better than Robert Quinn. He's quicker, a little bit more powerful.
If he's able to push the other side to give somebody else the option to get the sack, to kind of keep your eyes on Verse and somebody else come around and take him down, like that's kudos. I mean, he's had so much pressure throughout this whole season. He's only going to get better from here. So I'm really excited to see his future.
Yeah, but commenting on the culture thing, I think a lot of people forget, especially fans outside of the Rams, forget. They just think of that 21 team as like a team that was bought, a team that was stacked, and like a they bought a Super Bowl by trading for all these players. But that's not exactly true in 2001. We all remember the growing pains that roster took. People going into that season said we were top heavy, that we had no depth, that we couldn't make plays, that if our superstars went out, we were done for. And we saw and we picked up OBJ when everyone said he was washed. We got Von Miller when people said he was washed. We rejuvenated a lot of those players. And when we made our run in that team, that was a lot of backup, second string practice squad players that rose up and made the plays that eventually won us the championship against the NFC championship against 49ers and beat the Bengals. So this culture, it raises the level of play that a lot of these players from other teams don't necessarily get to see. And it's just the way that he leads and cultivates other leaders. It's special. That's why his coaching tree is probably going to be one of the best and most historic in all of the NFL. And you can already tell, like, I think Shula is going to end up being a head coach next year. And there's already some talk about Mike LaFleur. So, Zach, like you said, it's special, and it's the way we bring in people, and it's the type of players we bring in. We're very selective, and we don't tolerate toxicity or people focusing just on themselves, or McVay will kick you out the door. Doesn't matter
Yeah,
how good.
we've had a good defense, for a while now, and it doesn't matter. We keep losing our defensive coordinator. It doesn't matter who we put in. It does matter who we put in, but like our defense has been playing great. Even with the change of defensive coordinators, and again, I think it goes back to Sean McVay, his culture, his ability, like you said, to give his
Mm-hmm.
lieutenants the ability to control the situation. He lets them make the calls. He trains them to be head coaches for the future. And so basically every time Sean McVay has an offensive and defensive coordinator, it's like having three head coaches, because that's the trust
Mm-hmm.
level that Sean McVay has in his coordinators.
Yeah. The can ask Zach, what do you think of Omar Spates? Do we have another elite linebacker? Do you think he has potential? What's your kind of take on Omar Spates and the way he has been playing?
Yeah.
Because he's getting better every game.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's getting better each and every game, and I just want to see his growth and see how his potential goes. I mean, obviously, we have Roseboom, who's doing an admirable job. I'm not going to go down on the guy. I think he, obviously he's made some mistakes, and some of our other linebackers have too, and that's probably one of our weaker areas. But that's also saying that we also have a really good defensive line, and you can't be immaculate at every single position. So I do think that we're going to have to look at the linebacker position, moving forward. But I definitely think in this season we have what we have, and this defense as a whole can take us to the promised land.
Yeah. The Rams love investing in the linebacker position, Zach, so I'm sure they'll look right into that in the draft. But yeah,
Well, they tried. They have. Let's say they have tried. They just have not been successful in it. I mean, you look at bringing Bobby Wagner and things like that, trying to improve that core, bringing in veteran experience, and it just didn't pan out the way that everyone was hoping it. It's a hard position to get, to nail down.
Yeah. So I feel like the one negative of our D line being so great has been they get up the field very quickly. And like we talked about, they weren't the best at maintaining gap integrity. And those leaks, our linebackers just weren't quick enough, and they did not do a great job filling them in the middle part of the season. They have gone a lot better. Now, we haven't faced the best opponents when it comes to running backs, so it's a little bit more spotty record. Aaron Jones is still a little hurt. Cam Akers broke a big run. So it's one of those things where I think Spates right now is average to above average linebacker, making a few really good good to great plays a game. And I do see a lot of potential in him and a lot of growth. I feel like he has a good natural ability to read the play. He just can't make the perfect tackle. Both him and Roseboom have a problem having their tackles broken because they're just a hair too late, especially Roseboom. I think Spates gets there. Maybe he's just not strong enough. He needs bulk up in the offseason, but Spates has a lot of potential. I think Roseboom has proven he's a really decent rotational guy, but we need a third. This is why it really hurts to have lost Ernest Jones. We needed that prime dominant guy this season, and I feel like Spates could become that. Hopefully, if we make a playoff run, definitely now. But next year, I think Spates has a lot of potential.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Kubiak says, facts. People forget Troy Reader was our starting middle linebacker. It was all culture, and we are blessed to have McVay. Yes, we are blessed to have McVay. But don't make me try to go through the PTSD of having Reader as the starting linebacker, even though McVay tried to do that earlier this season.
And he still could come. He could still make a comeback.
Don't put that. Actually, no, I don't think they called him up from IR. I don't think we have any other designations.
I thought we got an additional one for going into the postseason. They just haven't. They just chose John Johnson.
Oh,
yeah, I think they chose John Johnson. I think they may. I'll have to look at it, but I think they may still have one. They're just obviously you just never know week to week because you don't know who's going to get injured and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and if they need it right now, they don't need that spot. So we'll see. Some other notes, just kind of some of the other notes is like Cooper Kupp wasn't even on the field 50% of the time, or he was only on there for 55% of the snaps on the offensive snaps. Just some of these craziness is like, they were really using more tight ends, like you were saying earlier. They were really using more, more of other combinations. I mean, we didn't even see Tutu Atwell. I don't even know if I saw him on the field. I have to go back and check his snap count. But
I think I saw him in the first quarter.
He had one snap count. So it was just a very bizarre. It was just not it felt like it wasn't a normal Rams offense. I don't know. Offense.
McVay can tailor entire offense just for one opponent. We seen him do that, especially in the playoffs. If you think about it, that offense we ran against the Cowboys was very unique in 2018. And then going 21, I would say the Bucs game was more traditional for that year. The 49ers game, if I remember correctly, because of some injuries and stuff, we did kind of use more tight end sets. But either way, I feel like McVay is clever enough to know when you need to change something up. And he must have saw something in the game tape from the Vikings the first time we played them and more of the recent stuff to really feel like having two tight ends and having a lot of tight end sets could really, take advantage of some holes. And they really did. Because sometimes a lot of people don't realize, like, a lot of our offense is trying to break the rules of the defense because defensive players have certain things they have to or not do depending on what the offense does. So McVay is smart enough to know, like, hey, if this guy can only, jump down if he thinks it's a crosser, and if not, you have to go help out the cornerback to your left. He can take advantage of that and just completely run a tight end in the flat, have him catch it, and go for 9 or 10 yards in a kind of pseudo screen pass. So it's hard to say because me and you don't have team intel, but you hear McVay talk and he definitely knows how to abuse some of those coaches. And that's why when he doesn't have the answers, he struggles. He struggles a lot, like against Belichick and Super Bowl and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You want to address this one, Zach?
Yeah, I can. I get this. I see this all the time. I'm obviously probably one of the biggest Cooper Cup fans. I will never tell you that you should sell Cooper Cup. I think he brings more to this team than I think people realize. I think he's a bounce board for Stafford. He's and do I disagree that he's looking like it's harder for him to get open? Yes, I think that there is some separation depending on the route. But we do see spurts that he still has it. I mean, you saw the one target he did get was a design to him. That was a plan that they talked about on the sidelines. That he's like, Stafford realizes he needs to get Cooper Cup the ball. They went on the field, 29-yard pass, beautiful catch. It's really clutch to have him. I think he also helps out the other wide receivers. I mean, I don't think Puka is great nonstop. I don't know if Puka would be where he's at if he didn't have Cooper Cup to mentor.
Yeah.
I think Cooper Cup brings a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. And like I said, if Cooper Cup I cannot see Cooper Cup not a Ram. I cannot see it. I probably have my blinders on. I think I would love him to stay back and be a coach if he wants to be done with being a player. But I think that he brings a lot to this table, and I don't think he's done yet. I think maybe that there's something still lingering. He's not at 100%, but maybe we can see that 100% here going against the Eagles when, again, we're going to need this offense to step up. They're going to have to be electric. And I think that we still have I think Cup is still one of the best receivers out there. We just need to scheme him better with where he's at now and not keep scheming him like we're in the 2021 season. He's playing good decoy. Maybe that's the key. He's playing decoy to help open up other players. I don't know.
He's just not getting as much attention as he used to, because I've been watching him, and that's definitely a fact that his separation has gone downhill a little bit. But man, I think
people still know he's a weapon.
He is, but he's a diminished weapon. Do you remember the 2019 Eagles game, Zach? Was that the first game Cup really had a breakout performance? Like a huge explosion.
I think he had a couple in the 2018 season before he got injured.
Okay.
I mean, I think 2018, I mean, we knew he was a good player. I don't think he became really wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 until 2018. And then obviously 2019 and then 2021, his best season yet. But I think it's always going to be hard to move away from your Super Bowl MVP, your Triple Crown winner, your one of the probably best wide receiver minds to play the game. Whether he's becoming less athletic in the separation and stuff, but I think he's still playing an amazing level at being a pass blocker or a run blocker. I think he's able to be that cage person because, again, you don't want to. Cooper Cup is a threat, whether he can get separation or not. If he can't get separation, he's still a threat. I just think that it's going down. It's becoming less of a target because he can't get that separation. If he had that separation, he would be thrown to all the time.
Yeah. The can says Puka Nacua is like a wide receiver running back like Deebo Samuel. He is freaking hard to tackle. I would say he runs more like a fullback than a running back, but yeah, your point still stands. He's a freak, and I feel like he's gotten a lot more attention this season. He is getting double, triple covered, and I feel like teams were still a little afraid of Cup last year when he was on the field with Puka, and the more teams have started to realize Cup is, at least right now, not having elite separation, the more you've seen a lot of coverage and a lot of focus to Puka go. So I like what McVay has been doing in the last few weeks with using him as a decoy to like completely clear out zones and stuff like that.
Yep, Puka's a beast. Puka is a beast.
Yeah. Let's see. Talked about tight ends a little bit. Davis Allen caught a touchdown. A little bit flash from him. Need to see more. Like he had a great rookie year. A lot of good moments. Just
The only weird part about this game was that the refs seemed they really wanted the Vikings to come back, and they just could not. They kept tripping over their own feet.
Oh, you want to talk about that now?
I'm ready to talk about it because I think we're going to have to start wrapping things up and talk about the Eagles game. That's probably the last point I'm going to say about this is like I was so frustrated because, and this has happened to the Rams numerous times this season.
Like 3 times, I would say.
But when you have the rules analyst who's the guy they phone in to ask about the rules and why a flag was called and do they think something should be overturned, when he's even going like, yeah, that's a soft call, I probably wouldn't call it, seems kind of ticky-tacky, I understand what they think they saw, then you know that this was a problem game for these refs. Whether it was a holding call, whether it was bad. It was bad.
So I've said this many times. My big thing is it doesn't matter to me whether you're strictly following the NFL rule book and you're to the point where like you're calling everything, or if you're being very loose and you're like, let them be physical, let them play. It has to be blatantly obvious for me to flag it. My big thing is call both teams down the line exactly the same way. And this ref crew just refused to do that against the Vikings because they were losing early on. And I feel like this is one of those things where it's frustrating because it got to a point where I was like, it feels like they're actively trying to just sabotage our offense. Because like you had blatant just normal blocks. Like he let go. He completely kept on walking away. The late hit at the dead foul penalty was a little ridiculous too. That was just like a normal push after a play. It happens all the time. They even had the same thing happen on one of our punt returns where 2 of their guys just shoved our guys after whistle for no reason, no flag, and that would have been the exact same situation. So
yeah,
it's just
holding calls that the Vikings, if we were getting holding calls, the Vikings should have been getting holding calls. When one of our guys on punt return, I think it was Hoyt, got thrown into the kicker or pushed into the kicker, apparently that's a foul now. And then Stafford had to tell the refs, did you not see that face mask? That was still bizarre. There was never a flag thrown, but if luckily the refs decided, yes, there was a face mask on Kyron Williams, but like these guys are blind to the fact of whatever a Vikings person is doing. But, when it comes to Rams, it's, throw flag central.
And not to mention, New York had to overturn the fumble touchdown. I don't even think they would have given us that. So I think it was fair to let it play on, let them score a touchdown. Perfectly fine.
Yep.
But the people, some of the Viking fans are being like, that's completely unfair. Like, how are these refs blind? I'm like, he threw the ball. Like Mahomes does that every week. And no one bats an eye. And Stafford does it, dirting it to the ground near Puka. Like it was a passing motion. It was a flick of the wrist, and it was towards a wide receiver. It's not intentional grounding, and it wasn't a fumble. That's by definition of NFL rules.
If Puka wasn't there, we probably could have made the call either way. Either it was an intentional grounding or it could have
it would have been an intentional grounding, and it should have been.
Either way, but because there was a receiver in the area, Stafford knew he was in the area. Puka turned around, clearly trying to, get an attempt to get the ball if he was going to be targeted, and just didn't do it. So I don't know. The refs were not fun to play with, but
They were
good
terrible.
job.
They were just one side's. Like, I saw Jared Verskin, his neck choked out multiple times, and then to turn around, and this is frustrating thing. That's fine if you're gonna let him do that at the verse, but then don't call our guy for just like having a basic hold or tight end and then letting go. Like, you can actively see him let go. He's not holding under his shoulder pads. He's not doing anything wrong technique. It's just like making up a flag. And I almost feel like that's what I like about the UFL or the XFL rules. Like, you have one challenge flag that's like an ultimate challenge. You can throw that against a flag. And I feel like that should be something in the NFL. You can only use it once. So, like, you can't really abuse it. But if someone calls a flag like that, you should be able to challenge it. It was frustrating, and I think that's the main reason our offense stalled out the entire second half. Now, it's a problem with our offense for not being able to convert those third and extra longs. It's going to be really hard to win Super Bowl because you're going to get in negative situations, and you got to be able to climb out of that hole. And, it's a little troublesome that they couldn't do it in the second half, but I also understand it because a lot of it was being very conservative. We were up 3 scores, no need to rock the boat. So, yeah,
All right.
flags were rough.
Flags were rough. All right, so now it's time to talk about our next game, divisional game coming up this week against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. We already mentioned that there is a chance for snow, maybe some mix of rain. Weather is not going to be super favorable, but I think this Rams team can overcome.
Yep.
So Rams, 10-7 Rams going against up the 14-3 Philadelphia Eagles. We already took care of one 14-3 team, so we're up against our next one. And it's going to be a hard game. It's probably one of the more challenging games that the Rams are going to have to face, mostly because they did lose to the Eagles at SoFi earlier this season. What is your take? How do you think the Rams could fare off? Do you think they have a chance against the explosiveness of Saquon Barkley, the ability to overcome and dismantle Hurts and his offensive weapons?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's any given Sunday when you get to this point in playoffs. I feel like this Rams team has a lot of motivation and a lot of experience. We're the most experienced playoff team left in playoffs in the NFC. We have a coach and a quarterback who's done it. We're the only coach and quarterback combination who has won a Super Bowl in the NFC. So I think that's kind of our X factor, and it's got to be like the Vikings game. We got to start off hot. We cannot afford to start off cold against this ball control type of team. And I feel like we have to give them taste of their own medicine. We need focus on ball control. We need focus on running. A lot of jet sweeps, a lot of screen passes. I feel like you have to have extension of the running game and then hit a few 20 to 30 yard passes that back up their coverage. But outside of that, just keep it in front of you, beat down the ball, keep it away from Jalen Hurts, keep it away from Saquon. That way, if they get down multiple scores, they can't just run it with Saquon the entire game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the teams and you kind of compare the individuals up a little bit. You have Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts. Stafford has 3,700 yards. Jalen Hurts has 2,900 yards. Obviously, he's more of that mobile quarterback threat that you have to be careful of, the tush push, everything like that. Stafford has 20 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Jalen Hurts 18 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. So I do think in the long run, I think Stafford does have the edge as far as a passing receiver. Obviously, Stafford can run the ball. He just shouldn't and most likely won't run the ball unless absolutely necessary. But then we're like kind of where you were telling about is like the run game is where it's going to matter the most. Obviously, Saquon Barkley has had a phenomenal year. Over 2,000 yards, 345 carries. But he's going up against Kyren Williams. Again, there's in the top three of the running backs, you have, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and Kyren Williams. So two of the top two running backs facing off this weekend, where, again, Kyren Williams only has, just under 1,300 yards, 30 yet less carries, but he also has one more touchdown as far as rushing touchdowns than Saquon Barkley, 14 to 13. Mm-hmm. So I definitely agree with you. I think the run threat is really what's going to need to happen. The Rams are going to have to time management this a little bit better. They're going to need to keep Saquon off the field and not let him continue just to run the ball and chew up a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you have to be very well balanced. If you look at the teams that have beat the Eagles this season, the three being Washington, Tampa Bay, and the Falcons, they all did it with a slight exception with Washington. They all did it. The Falcons and Bucks did it with a very even rushing and passing percentage. They had really good ratios, and they kind of just outlasted. They got up and then outlasted the Eagles in both of those games. The Washington game was a little bit of Jaden Daniels playing superhero, being able to get it open with his own legs. That allowed him to be able to throw a little bit easier, and then kind of rolled from there.
I don't even think. It was Kenny Pickett was the quarterback, so Jalen Hurts wasn't even in that game.
Well, so that for the Commanders game?
The Commanders game. Yep. Kenny Pickett was the quarterback.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, still a little bit different. So Washington, you can kind of write off, I guess. They still had their starting defense, so you can kind of look
at.
They
still had Saquon Barkley, who's the show. Yeah. I mean, he's really the king of the show there, with all the rushing yards and that ability. So I think it's going to be a challenge, no matter what. You kind of look at the receiving. You look at kind of like how the receiving has been going as for the Eagles. You have AJ Brown, obviously, who kind of leads their team. 67 receptions, just over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, things like that. So obviously, you're going to have AJ Brown being a threat, Devontae Smith, and obviously Saquon is also a threat when it comes to the passing game as well. But again, I keep saying, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the big thing with stopping the Eagles in this case would, like we said multiple times, sell out for the run, just sell out to stop Saquon, and make Jalen Hurts throw. And if he can beat you, he beats you. You just live with that.
Especially over the middle, like make him throw in the middle. Don't let him go to the outside. Keep him contained and make him throw to the middle. And I think we'll have better success.
Yeah, especially with the linebackers playing slightly better than they were earlier. I am worried about Goddard. I feel like that was one thing the Vikings did not take advantage of was Hawkinson. They finally started to, and he was the whole reason they scored at all. So I feel like that was a missed opportunity. Like, if people want to score on us, throw at the tight ends. That's been our biggest weakness, even when we've held teams down to below 10 points. It's always been the tight ends that really caused us trouble. So Goddard's going to have to be a big focus of their offense.
Yeah, I mean, let's kind of look back at the game earlier in the season against the Rams versus the Eagles. it was a Saquon Barkley game. 26 carries, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns. If we can just limit him to half of that, I think the Rams have a plan for success. I think Stafford is the better quarterback. Again, you take out the mobility factor of it. He's the better passing quarterback. I think Kyron Williams, he's a heavy-handed top 3 running back, and then you have Puka Nacua, who I think is night and day better than A.J. Brown. So I think the Rams have what it takes to beat them. It's every week. Every team is beatable. The Rams are beatable. The Eagles are beatable. You just have to find that weakness and be able to contain their success. And if we can contain the success of the running game, I think the Rams will have a much better shot at being victorious.
Got to execute. And this team has been Jekyll and Hyde all year. I feel like, Monday night was the first game really where both sides executed to a high level for a majority of the game. They really did. So we'll see if they can do it again.
The Rams have to start off hot. Every time that they have started hot, they have had success throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And they need to continue that momentum. This was probably even against the Bills, probably outside the Bills game, this was probably their best game against the Vikings, where every level seemed to play at a high level. When they did have to punt it, Ethan Evans is a masterful punter. He's able to just nail it in the right spot almost every single time. And so I think you're going to need that. You're going to need every phase to play at a good and high level. And I think if the Rams offense can just continue what they did in the first quarter and a half in this game and bring it to this game, I think that the Rams have a shot. They just need to keep the momentum and get the fire started soon.
Hey, they better be careful for what they wish for. I saw a lot of Philly fans being like, oh, we got to easy out, super easy. I think this Rams team shocked a lot of people last week, and there's a lot of players other fan bases don't know just because they don't recognize the name. They're going to start recognizing some of these names, and I feel like this game is going to be a big reason why.
Everyone wants to call they want to get the Rams out. They think that we're not a good team, that, we were 1-4 team to come into the playoffs, to just, the luck of the draw to win NFC West. But it takes effort, and it takes a team that's willingness to not give up. A lot of 1-4 teams could be packing up the bag, selling the team off. The Rams didn't do that. They stayed. They were committed to this team. They're committed to winning, and they're going to show that each and every week. Our title of this episode is "We Fear None," and I just loved Sean McVay's. We respect all, but we fear none. We will respect you. We will come into your house, and we will respect the way you play the ball. But we do not fear you. We do not fear any team.
Yeah,
we're not going to come here and just bend to your will. We will go out there each and every drive, and we may be 3 and out, but we are trying to win this game no matter what.
Yeah, and people forget that last game, it was a 1-score game going into the fourth. And that's with a lot of mistakes. The Rams had a fumble early on. They had that Barkley breakaway home run. I feel like, Zach, if they play their brand of football, if they don't make mistakes and they come out aggressive with spirit like they did against the Vikings and execute the way we have seen, especially on defense last few weeks, like I said, it's going to be a game. It's going to be a good game. And, they have a chance. They have a chance to do something really historic. No matter what, I'm proud of this team. They've done great.
I am too.
It's been a W of a season. It really has, for where they came from.
Yep, I'm happy with this team. We got it. We're not done yet, as we like to keep saying. This isn't the end for the Rams, I don't think. We got one more game at least left. And after this, we'll see where this takes us. But like you said, super proud of this team. Glad to be a fan of the Rams. Glad to do this podcast with you each and every week. It's a great feeling. It's a great team. It's a great culture, and we love being part of the Ramley. Especially what has happened over the last week, where Ramley came up and they got charter buses. They got people to the stadium, and this was as much of a home field advantage I felt like than it would have been at SoFi. And so I'm just, again, this team just is, it's more than football, but it's a great football team. So super excited.
Yeah. Yeah. And just thanks for all the Arizona Cardinals staff, like all the other teams that donated to a lot of the relief efforts. If you guys haven't yet, if you have any spare money, please donate to those relief efforts. It's hitting a lot of different people very hard. And, it just, any amount of help just goes a long way.
Yep. So, let's see. Anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
No, baby, we got a playoff win. A lot of teams have to wait 50 years. And, like we said, McVay, he's a heck of a coach, man. And I'm thankful every game I get to see him. It's going to be like what happened with Aaron Donald when McVay hangs up the horns. That's going to be a tough week, Zach. That's going to be a tough week. Tough week.
It has been 8 years with Sean McVay, 6 playoff appearances, 4 divisional wins, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and 1 Super Bowl championship. And he ain't done yet.
Still second youngest head coach in the NFL.
So, all right. With that, I think we're going to wrap it up with this week's episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. Ashton, thank you for co-hosting this with me. You can find him at RampAshton1 on all the social medias. You can find me at zacmaier on X. You can find us on X at East Coast Rams. You can find us on Instagram and Threads at eastcoastramspod. Go on YouTube, youtube.com/@eastcoastrams. Please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to us to get to over 500 subscribers before we hit the field in Philadelphia. And if you're on Blue Sky, you can find us there too at East Coast Rams. We're trying to be everywhere we can. If you're somewhere that you think we should be, please let us know and we will get there as well. If you're not watching us live, you can always find us on any other podcast app, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, we are there. And with that, whose house? Rams house. See you guys next time.